1 ham hock, 500 grams of dried beans, 10 portions of soup for under €5. I am going to show you the whole process today, but do not pull the hock out too early. A hock pulled before the connective tissue has fully broken down gives you thin broth instead of the thick, silky soup this recipe is built on. When to pull it is coming at the end. One thing before the heat goes on: 500 grams of dried white beans, cannellini, haricot, or navy, into a large bowl of cold water tonight. They will double in size overnight as they absorb the water. Cover them completely, then add another 2 centimeters on top of that. 8 hours minimum. Beans that go straight into the pot without soaking will not cook properly in the 3-hour window and will stay firm at the center no matter how long the stove runs. Do not use tinned beans. They will disintegrate during the long simmer and disappear into the broth before the ham is done. Dried only. 1 pre-cooked smoked ham hock, approximately 800 grams to 1 kilogram. It will still release flavor into the broth during the long cook. What it must be is smoked and cured, not fresh. A fresh ham hock will not produce the same flavor. Look for one that is dark, firm, and smells of smoke. That smoke is going to season the entire pot. The ham hock goes into a large, heavy pot. 2 liters of cold water poured over it. The hock should be mostly submerged. If not, add more water until it is. 2 bay leaves. 1 teaspoon of ground black pepper. No salt yet. The ham hock is heavily cured and will release a significant amount of salt into the broth during the long cook. Salt added at the start risks an over-salted pot. Season at the end only. High heat. Bring it to a boil. With a pre-cooked smoked hock, little or no foam will appear. Once it reaches a boil, reduce to a steady simmer. 2 large onions, roughly chopped. 4 garlic cloves, crushed. 3 medium carrots, cut into 1 centimeter rounds. 1 teaspoon of dried thyme, all into the pot around the ham hock. The soaked, drained beans in. Stir everything together. The pot will look completely full. That is correct. Everything reduces over the next 3 hours, and the beans absorb a significant amount of liquid as they cook. Lid on, slightly ajar. Reduce to a gentle simmer. Small bubbles breaking the surface, nothing aggressive. 2.5 to 3 hours. This is where the patience is, and this is where the recipe does its work without you. In the first 30 minutes, the ham hock begins releasing its fat, its gelatin, and the smoke and salt from the cure into the water. The broth goes from pale and gray to the first hints of amber. The beans begin to swell further as they absorb the liquid. The vegetables soften and start to disappear into the background. They are flavor here, not texture. The kitchen starts to smell of it around this point. Low, smoky, faintly sweet from the onions and carrots. That smell will be in the walls by the time this is done. Stir every 30 to 40 minutes and scrape the bottom gently. The beans settle and will stick if left alone. At the 1-hour mark, lift the lid and look at what is happening. The broth is already darker. The onions have given up their shape entirely. The carrots are beginning to soften at the edges. The hock sits in the middle of it all, doing the work it was cured to do. At the 2-hour mark, the broth is visibly different from what went in. Press a bean between 2 fingers. No resistance and no chalkiness means it is done. Still firm, give it another 30 minutes and check again. While the pot works, could you live on this for a week? A pot of soup this size, reheated every day, getting better each time. Drop it in the comments. This is the moment I told you to wait for. At 2.5 to 3 hours, the broth has gone from pale gray water to deep amber. Thick, slightly cloudy, with a surface sheen from the rendered fat. That color is the gelatin from the connective tissue in the hock breaking down completely into the liquid. It is what gives the finished broth its body, and it only happens after the full cook. Pull the hock at 2 hours and the broth is still thin. Give it the full 3 and it is something else entirely. Using tongs, carefully lift the ham hock out of the pot and onto a board. It will be falling apart. Handle it carefully or it comes to pieces on the way out. Either way is fine. Let it cool for 5 minutes until safe to handle. 2 forks. Pull the meat away from the bone. It shreds easily into rough, uneven pieces. Work methodically. Go around the bone in sections rather than pulling from the top. The meat closest to the bone is the most tender and carries the deepest flavor. Do not leave any behind. There is far more meat inside a ham hock than it looks like from the outside. The bone is surrounded by layers of tender, smoky pork that spent 3 hours becoming something entirely different from what went in. Discard the bone, the skin, and any large pieces of fat that have not fully rendered. Keep every piece of meat. All the shredded ham goes back into the pot. Stir it through so it distributes evenly into the broth and beans. Taste the broth. It should be deeply flavored, smoky, and rich. Add salt if needed. The hock may have seasoned the entire pot already, or it may need a small adjustment. Add black pepper to taste. If the soup is thinner than you want, take the back of a spoon and crush some of the beans against the side of the pot. Press and drag. The mashed beans release their starch directly into the broth and thicken it within 2 minutes. Keep going until the consistency is right, thick enough to coat the spoon and not run off quickly when it is lifted. 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. Stir it in. The acid sharpens the smoky flavor and cuts through the richness of the ham fat without being detectable itself. Everything else tastes more clearly because of it. Add it at the end only. Vinegar added during a long cook loses its brightness completely. Remove the bay leaves. Ladle into deep bowls. Make sure each bowl gets a good portion of shredded ham, whole beans, and broth. Every spoonful should have all 3. Deep amber broth. Shredded ham in every spoonful. Whole beans that have absorbed 3 hours of smoky pork fat. The smell of slow-cooked pork and smoke filling the kitchen from a pot that cost under 5 euros. I take a spoonful of the broth on its own first. It is thick and silky. That is the gelatin from the hock. It coats the mouth rather than running off the palate immediately. The smoke from the cured meat is present in every mouthful, but sits underneath everything else rather than announcing itself. The beans are tender all the way through and carry the flavor of the ham broth in every bite. The shredded meat has lost any toughness it ever had. It comes apart without effort and sits in the broth rather than on top of it. This is not a soup where the components sit separately in the bowl. After 3 hours, everything has moved toward each other. The beans taste of the ham. The broth tastes of the beans. It has become one thing. This soup improves every day it sits. The beans absorb more of the broth overnight. By day 2, it is thicker and more deeply flavored than the day it was made. Depression-era families made 1 pot and ate from it all week. That was not a compromise. It was the plan. This soup jars exceptionally well. The gelatin from the ham hock causes the soup to set into a firm jelly when cold. This is correct and is a sign of a well-made broth. Ladle it hot into hot, sterilized, wide-mouth jars. Make sure each jar gets an even mix of ham, beans, and broth. Fill to 2 centimeters below the rim. Wipe the rims clean, seal tightly. 12 months on a shelf in a cool, dark, dry place. When you open it, the jelly liquefies completely within 5 minutes on the heat. Under €5, 10 portions. A pot that gets better every day and lasts a year on a shelf. Tell me in the comments, what forgotten Depression-era recipe do you want me to bring back next?